सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। वक्रतुण्डमहाकाय सूर्यकोटिसमप्रभा निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा। सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणि विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम्। We continue our class on Bhagavad Gita. So we will go ahead and we will chant the Dhyana shlokas. For today I will share it once again, but make sure you also have your copy handy. All right? So while I'm chanting, you please also chant. All right. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Gratitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitamritavarshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayini Amba Tvamanusandathami Bhagavad Gite Bhavadveshini Namostute Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Pullara Tapatra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajvalito Jnanamaya Pradipaha Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vetraikapanaye Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Gitamritaduhe Namaha Sarvopanishado Gavaha Dogdha Gopalanandanaha Partho Vatsasudhir Bhokta Dugdham Gitamritam Mahat Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Bande Jagadgurum Bhishma Drona Tatha Jayadratha Jala Gandharani Lotpala Shalyagrahavati Kripena Vahani Karnena Velakula Ashwathama Vikarna Ghora Makara Duryodhana Varitini Sotirna Khalu Pandavairana Nadi Kaivartaka Keshavaha Parasharyavachasarojamamalam Gitartha Gandhotkatam Nanakyanaka Kesaram Harikatha Sambodhana Bodhitam Loke sajjana shat padairaharaha pepiyamanam buddha bhuyat bharata pankajam kalimala pradvamsina shreyase mukam karoti vachalam pangum langhayate girim yatkripatamaham vande paramanandamadhavam yam brahma varunendra rudra marutaha stunvanti divyaistavaihi vedai sankapatakramopanishadaihi gayanti yam samagaha ध्यानावस्थित तद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तं न विदुःसुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः. All right. So I hope all of you have this Gita Dhyanam and we will chant it, every class, as I said, for chapter 1, because it's our way of getting into the mood and tuning into the Bhagavad Gita. So I will chant and then you repeat in your own place. Anaga will repeat. So when Anaga says or chants, then you also repeat. Okay? So we are going to chapter 1. Verse 1. Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha.
Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha.
Atha Prathamodhyayaha.
Atah Prathamodhyayaha.
Arjuna Vishada Yogaha.
Arjuna Vishada Yogaha.
Dhritarashtra Uvacha.
Dhritarashtra Uvacha.
Dharmakshetre Kurukshetre Samaveta
Dharmakshetre Kurukshetre Samaveta
Mamaka Pandavaschaiva Kimakurvata Sanjaya.
Mamakav Pandavaschaiva Kimakurvata Sanjaya.
Okay, now this time I will chant and you all chant in your place. Okay, I will chant from Dhritarashtra Uvacha. Dhritarashtra Uvacha Dharmakshetre Kurukshetre Samaveta Mamakah Pandavaschaiva Kimakurvata Sanjaya. So, the story of the Bhagavad Gita opens, and it opens with Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra's name, who is Dhritarashtra. Rashtra means nation. Dhrita, the one who's supposed to hold the nation, is called Dhritarashtra. It begins with Dhritarashtra. And from his question, we can see so many problems. Sanjaya tells him, Bhishma has fallen. And so he is, of course, shocked. And he wants to know what happened in this Kurukshetra, in this Dharmakshetra, in this field of Dharma, in this field of the Kurus, what happened? But he just doesn't ask what happened. He says, what happened between my people and the Pandavas? What happens between my people and the Pandavas? And in this particular verse, this is where Dhritarashtra goes all wrong. We see here that he, supposed to be a leader, becomes very partial. He starts to see that there is Pandavas and there is Mamaka, there's Kauravas. And this feeling, this having a partial vision, is due to what is called attachment. Attachment has 4 kinds of thoughts. Okay, so we're going to look at attachment and look at how Dhritarashtra had this attachment. Thought number 1 is, I see you as a source of joy. I see you. I see this person. I see this place, this experience as a source of joy. That's called delusion. Next is, I depend on you as my source of joy. That's called dependence. So I see you, you're my source of joy, and I depend on you. Means whenever you are the one who can make me happy, which means the remote control is in your hand. And third is, I'll do whatever you want. And that's a feeling of helplessness. I'll do whatever you want because you make me happy. So I have given you the remote control to my life, and you can do whatever you want with me because I'm helpless. I'm so dependent on you. So we saw delusion, dependence, helplessness. And because of helplessness, what happens is I become blind. I lose objectivity. I'm not able to see clearly. So I become blind to your flaws. I become blind to your faults. I just disregard them. I forget about them. I keep them in the side. And therefore, my vision becomes very partial. Because, I'm only looking at you. I'm only looking at you. And I'm only looking at you, and I'm going to do this because, you know why? I'm afraid to lose you. Fear. So in this one word attachment, just see what happens. See this very, very clear thought flow. You are my source of joy. I see you as a source of joy. Number 1. Number 2, I depend on you as my source of joy. Number 3, I am helpless. I am helpless. You can do whatever you want with me. And because I'm only seeing you, number 4, my vision is very partial. I'm not seeing anybody else. I'm becoming blind. And number 5 is, I'm going to keep doing that because I'm afraid. I don't want to lose you. That whole thing is what Dhritarashtra went through. That is called attachment. And so you can see what it causes. And if you're a leader, how can you be attached like that? How can you have that kind of emotion? Because you're supposed to be a leader, isn't it? Now, how is that emotion of love? Number 1, I am my own source of joy. Independently, I can be joyous. Independently, I can be happy. So there's clarity. So I see myself as a source of joy. Number 2, I depend on myself as a source of joy. And number 3, therefore, I will do whatever you need me to do, whatever you want me to do. But remember, I'm not dependent on you. So if what you're doing is adharmic, I will tell you because I'm not dependent on you. I'm not depending on my happiness on you. And the 4th point is, because I'm independent of you, I can see clearly. I can see the whole vision. I'm not blindsided. And number 5 is, I'm fearless. If you say, then you know what? I don't want to be with you, or I don't want to do this with you. I'm okay with that. But I will stand by dharma. I will stand by what's right. This comes out of independence. Attachment comes out of dependence. So you see how Dhritarashtra fell. The one who's supposed to hold the nation held on to his own notion. So instead of holding on to the nation, he held on to his notion. Dhritarashtra is not just some character in Mahabharata that we see. Dhritarashtra is you and me. There are times when these things happen in our life and we're not able to see. So in this verse, we see all of the wrong notions of Dhritarashtra. It starts with that. This whole verse tells us what happened in the Mahabharata. What happened is it started from Dhritarashtra only. Because if he was able to stop Duryodhana, then Duryodhana wouldn't have gotten out of control, doing one thing after the other thing after the other thing. But the fact is, he did get out of control. So it started with Dhritarashtra, this whole problem. And therefore, the Bhagavad Gita starts with Dhritarashtra. It starts with analyzing his question, because in his question itself is the problem. And this is the problem of all of us. Not only Dhritarashtra has this problem, Arjuna also later has this problem. Very interesting. But in a different way, in a different light. So the Bhagavad Gita opens with this blind king Dhritarashtra and his question of partiality. Now Sanjaya has to report what happened. Now first, obviously Dhritarashtra is going to want to hear what is happening in the side of the Kauravas. So from verses 2 to 13, Sanjaya is reporting what is happening in the side of Kauravas. What is the mindset of Duryodhana? So this now we will see in verse number 2. So I will chant, and then when Anaga repeats again, you repeat in your place. Sanjaya Uvacha.
Sanjaya Uvacha.
Drishtva tu Pandavanikam.
Drishtva tu Pandavanikam.
Vyudham Duryodhanastada.
Vyudham Duryodhanastada.
Acharyamupasangam
Acharyamupasangamya.
Raja Vachanamabravit.
Raja Vachanamabravit.
I will chant now and you all chant with me on mute. Sanjaya Uvacha Drishtva tu Pandavanikam Vyudham Duryodhanastada Acharyamupasangamya Raja Vachanamabravit. Now, what happens? So here we go. What happens is that Tada, then Tada, Tu. This is what happened. This is what happened. You see, Vyudham. This Vyudham means formation. Pandavanikam. So this Pandava army. Anika means army. So this formation of the Pandava army, Drishtva, having seen it. So Duryodhana, having seen this formation of the Pandava army, what happened to him? Raja. This Raja Duryodhana, what did he do? Acharyam upasangamya. He went near. He approached his Acharya. Who's his Acharya? Dronacharya, his teacher. And Vachanam abravit. And he said these words. So here in verse number 2, what emotion we see? We see is fear. Duryodhana is here and he is Drishtva. He's looking at this whole Pandava army. Now you all know, well, because we studied in Mahabharata, the Pandava army had 7 Akshohinis. The Kaurava army had 11 Akshohinis. So there were millions and millions of soldiers. So actually what I'll do is I'll show you so that you can see here. So then you can imagine in your mind how big this Mahabharata war was. Okay? So here we have 1 Akshohini. In this 1 Akshohini, right? This is what you have. 21,870 chariots in 1 Akshohini. Okay? Then you have 21,870 gaja or elephants. Then you have 65,610 units of these horses. So 65,610 of these horses. Then 109,350 units of these soldiers, these foot soldiers. So the ratio was 1:1:3:5. And so in each Akshohini, there were 218,700 units. So just picture this. This is how many people, animals, how many beings were involved in one Akshohini. And if you look at the Pandavas and the Kauravas, Kaurava army had 11 such Akshohinis. So about 2.4 million people. And these were the people who were leading the Akshohinis, right? So some of these names we know, like Shalya, we know, Jayatrata, So, and he had the Narayaniya Sena. Remember, Bhagavan Krishna's army was with the Kauravas. The Pandava army had 7 Akshohinis, so 1.5 million. And this we have also seen, Satyaki, Drupada, Virata. So some of these names will be very familiar to you. So this is the, this is the grandeur of the Mahabharata war. This is how many people took part in this Mahabharata war. It was millions. So this Duryodhana, although knowing that his army is much bigger, he saw the army of the Pandavas. And he was afraid. He was afraid because of the people who were there, the magnanimity of the people. And so he went towards his Acharya Drona. And that kind of like seeking shelter, maybe my Acharya can comfort me and whatnot. So he goes to his Dronacharya seeking shelter. And then he goes with that initial emotion, but then he remembers he's a Raja, he's a king. Oh, I'm supposed to be proud. Oh, I'm supposed to be, very, very fearless. So he wants to go to his Acharya, and then he says, I'm a Raja, I'm a king, So let me go to this Dronacharya and let me go tell him what's happening. And so now this Duryodhana goes to Dronacharya and he tells him what's happening. Okay, so let us read that verse number 3. Pashyaitan Panduputrana.
Pashyaitam Panduputranam.
Acharya Mahatim Chamum.
Acharya Mahatim Chamum.
Vyudham Drupada Putrena.
Vyudham Drupada Putrena.
Vashishyena Dhimata.
Tava Shishyena Dhimata.
Pashyaitam Panduputranam Acharya Mahatim Chamum Vyudham Drupada Putrena Tava Shishyena Dhimata. So what happens here? He says, Acharya. So to Dronacharya, what happened? He says, Acharya, he says, Tava, Tava means your Dhimata Shishyena, by your Shishya, Dhimata, who's very wise. Who's his Shishya? Drishtadyumna. Drishtadyumna is the commander of the Pandava army. By your Shishya, who is Drupada Putrena, who's the son of Drupada, Vyudham Mahatim, there's this grand formation that he made. And Etam Chamum, this whole army of Panduputranam, of the Pandavas, see, look at this entire army. So he says, behold this mighty army of the sons of Pandu, arrayed by the son of Drupada, your wise disciple. So now, you might be wondering, why is Duryodhana saying all of this? So when we are afraid, what happens is our words lose discrimination. We become very indiscriminate. And from the way we talk also, you can know how our emotion is or what we are feeling. In the same way, by what Duryodhana is saying, you can sense what he's feeling. Because why would he even go and tell his teacher, behold? His teacher can see. His teacher is a warrior. His teacher knows the whole thing. His teacher knows all the formations, all the people involved. But this Duryodhana is like very afraid. And so he's saying, look, please see all of this. See this formation, this whole big chamum, this vast army. Look at it. And it's headed by your Shishya, Drishtadyumna. What a wonderful thing. Dronacharya knew that Drishtadyumna was born to kill him, yet he taught him warfare. This was their attitude back there and then. So he says, this is who I'm seeing. And so first Duryodhana looks at the whole army. Now Duryodhana is going to see here and enumerate all the warriors of the Pandava side. He's telling Dronacharya all of the warriors. Because as I told you, when we're afraid, we don't know what to do. And so he is just rambling on and rambling on and rambling on. And Dronacharya just remains silent. He doesn't say anything. He just remains silent. So let's see what Duryodhana keeps rambling on about. Okay? So we are going to read now 4, 5, and 6. Okay? These enumerate the warriors of the Pandava side, selected warriors of the Pandava side. Atra Shura Maheshvasaha.
Atra Shura Maheshvasaha.
Bhimarjuna Samayudhi.
Bhimarjuna Samayudhi.
Yuyudhano Viratascha.
Yuyudhano Viratascha.
Drupadascha Maharathaha.
Drupadascha Maharathaha.
Atra Shura Maheshvasa. Bhimarjuna Samayudhi. Yuyudhano Viratascha. Drupadascha Maharathaha. Drishtaketushchekitanaha.
Drishtaketushchekitanaha.
Kashirajascha Viryavan.
Kashirajascha Viryavan.
Purujit Kunti Bhojascha.
Purujit Kunti Bhojascha.
Devyascha Narapungavaha.
Shaibhyascha Narapungavaha.
Drishtaketushchekitanaha. Kashirajascha Viryavan. Purujit Kunti Bhojascha. Shaivyascha Narapungavaha. Yudhamanyuscha Vikrantaha.
Yudhamanuscha Vikrantaha.
Tamojascha Viryavan.
Uttamaujascha Viryavan.
Saubhadro Draupadeyascha.
Saubhadro Draupadeyascha.
Sarva eva Maharathaha.
Sarva eva Maharathaha.
Yudhamanyuscha Vikrantaha. Uttamojascha Viryavan. Saubhadro Draupadeyascha. Sarva eva Maharathaha. So here, what happens is he enumerates 17 warriors on the Pandava side. So this Duryodhana is really examining carefully, and he's looking at all of the warriors, and he says, Atra, here, Shura, here are the heroes, Maheshvasa, the mighty archers, and all of them are Bhima Arjuna Sama. So I'm on verse number 4. Bhima Arjuna Sama means they are equal to Bhima and Arjuna. In war, Yudhi, they are equal to Bhima and Arjuna in war. Who are they? Yudhana. Yudhana is Satyaki. Virata, we all know Virat, where the king of Virata, where they lived in incognito. Drupada, Draupadi's father, and they are all Maharataha. They're all mighty warriors, and we will see the meaning of this. So who else we have? Drishtaketu. Drishtaketu is the brother-in-law of Nakula. And Chekitanaha. Chekitanaha is another warrior. Kashi Raja. Kashi Raja is the king of Kashi. Viryavan. And they're all very, very strong. Purujit is the brother of Kunti Boja. And Kunti Boja is the father of Kunti. And Shaibya is the king of Shibi. Narapungavaha. They're best among men. Then we have Yudhamanyu and Uttamoja. They are both chiefs. They're tribal chiefs. Yudhamanyu and Uttamoja. This word Vikrantaha is describing them. They're the strong ones. And Viryavan, very brave. Sobhadro or Sobhadra means the son of Subhadra, Abhimanyu. Draupadeyaha means the sons of Draupadi, the 5 Upapandavas, one from each Pandava, from Yudhishthira, Arjuna, Nakula, Sadeva, Bhima. All of these are Maharathaha. These are great, great warriors. Ratha means the chariot. Maha, great chariot, great warriors of charioteers. And here, according to some sources, so there are different sources that I found, but according to one commentary, it says a Maharatha is one who is capable single-handedly of fighting 10,000 or more people. And this person can also wield different kind of weapons. And in the Mahabharata, there were different classifications of warriors. So there was Maharatha, there was Athirata, there was Ratha, and there was Ardharatha. So this Maharatha was the highest classification of warrior. Single-handedly, they could, fight with 10,000, like around 10,000 soldiers. So Duryodhana is just looking at all of these warriors and he's enumerating them one by one and one by one. It's as though he is examining exactly what's happening in the Pandava side. So he says all of this to Drona, this whole thing. And Dronacharya is there and he's quiet. He doesn't say anything. Normally if you're about to fight a great battle, right? And you have some skills, but you're looking at your competitor and you're thinking, my competitor has, great strokes, is a great runner and he jumps really well and he's so quick on his feet. And you're saying this, and let's say you're saying this to your coach that, this is my competitor. You would expect your coach to say, don't worry, you're just as good, or you're even better, or you can do it, or to something to boost your morale, because you're looking at your competitor and he looks quite like scary, I'm sure they just had Super Bowl, and I'm sure, they were describing also who they're fighting against. And so their coaches would tell them, okay, don't worry, you got it, right? So this Duryodhana was hoping for something from Dronacharya, like a boost of morale, some kind of comfort, some kind of encouragement. Tell me something. But this Dronacharya just stays quiet. He doesn't say anything. And so Duryodhana has to encourage himself. He has to encourage himself because what to do, right? So the feeling when we are insecure, what do we actually start to do? When we feel insecure, we start to brag, right? when nobody's paying attention to us, when we feel insecure about who we are, we start to brag and we say, yeah, I also did this and I can also do that and I can also go here and go there. So Duryodhana, out of his insecurity, he starts to brag. And he starts to brag because also he's consoling himself, because he's not getting any consolation from Drona. Drona's just keeping quiet. And so here's Duryodhana consoling himself by now examining his army. So let us read verse number 7. Asmakam tu vishishtaye
अस्माकं तु विशिष्टाये
tani bodha dvijottama
तान्निबोध द्विजोत्तमा
nayaka mama sainyasya
नायका मम सैन्यस्य
sanyartham tan bravimi te.
संज्ञानर्थं तान् ब्रवीमि ते
अस्माकं तु विशिष्टाये तानि बोधद्विजोत्तम नायका मम सैन्यस्य संज्ञार्थं तान् ब्रवीमि ते. So now here he is going to Dronacharya and he says, oh Dvijottama. Dvijottama means the best of the Dvija, of the twice born. He says, oh Dvijottama, asmakam, ours too, but ours, asmakam, ye, asmakam, our army, vishishta, it's very, it's different, it's superior, it's supreme. And he says, mama sainyasya sanyartham, that mama sainyasya, my army, sanyartham, let me name my army to you. Let me name my army to you. What of my army? Nayaka. Let me name the leaders of my army to you. Tan bravimi te. I will tell you. So he says here, know also, O best among the twice born, the names of those who are the most distinguished amongst ourselves, the leaders of my army, these I name to you. So he says, O Dronacharya, you are Dvijottama. Dvijottama, so he's bringing now this name of Dronacharya, which means Brahmana, because Brahmana means twice born, right? And so here he's trying to tell Dronacharya, don't be soft. Don't be a Brahmana. I know you are a Brahmana and I know that you have a soft spot for the Pandavas, but wake up because we're in war. So you can't have any such soft spots. So he's purposely calling him Dvijottama to say, oh, don't have your soft spots. Don't bring your Brahmanic qualities here. You're a Kshatriya now. And he says, Tani Bodha, I'm going to tell you. First he says Asmakam. First he says our army, which is so, supreme, superior. These leaders I will tell to you. First he says our army, then he says my army. So he really wanted to say my army, right? So first he says our army I will tell you, and then he says my army I will tell you all about this. And he says, let me name them to you. Again, here, he is consoling himself. He's trying to say, okay, let me see who I have. This is who the Pandavas have. And look, they have 17 great warriors that I just elaborated on. Now, who do I have? And let me see. And so he's telling Dronacharya, this is what it is. And so now let us see who he's naming in this army of the Kauravas. Verse number 8. Bhavan Bhishmascha Karnascha.
भवान् भीष्मश्च कर्णश्च
Kripascha Samitinjayah.
कृपश्च समितिञ्जयः
अश्वत्थामा विकर्णश्च
अश्वत्थामा विकर्णश्च
सौमदत्तिस्तथैव च
सौमदत्तिस्तथैव च
भवान् भीष्मश्च कर्णश्च कृपश्च समितिञ्जयः अश्वत्थामा विकर्णश्च सौमदत्तिस्तथैव च. So he looks at the Kaurava army, and obviously he wants to, he wants to praise Dronacharya. So he says, Bhavan, you are in my army. You, who else? Bhishma. Bhishma is in the army. And Karna. We also have Karna. And we all know what Karna is like, right? Karna is the one who has Indra's Shakti. So Karna is infallible. We have Bhishma. Bhishma is the one who can choose when he wants to die. So nobody can really destroy him. And of course, he starts with Drona. Drona, you are the master of all kinds of warfare. Who can defeat you? And Kripa is there, Kripacharya. Kripacharya, Kripacharya is Chiranjeevi. He is meant to live forever. He and Ashwatthama. We have Kripacharya here. We have Ashwatthama, your son. And this Kripacharya is the brother-in-law of Drona. So we have you, Drona, in your family. We have your brother-in-law. We have your son. And Samitinjayaha. All of them are victorious. And we also have Vikarna, who is Duryodhana's brother, and Somadatti. Somadatti is son of Somadatta, who's Bhurishrava. Okay? So he says these are all the people in our army. And so he's saying all of this and saying all of this. And it's as though Dronacharya is still quiet. He still doesn't say anything. So now, remember, Duryodhana had two main insecurities. One insecurity he had was the army was great of the Pandavas. Mahatim Chamum. Even if it was less in number, it was vast. And then he had an insecurity of the warriors on the Pandava side. And so he enumerated 17 of them. So now, to break that insecurity, he enumerated the warriors in the Kaurava side to break that insecurity. And he's going to go again and say more praise about his warriors, more praise about why his warriors are really, really great. So again, this is the insecure Duryodhana trying to console himself, trying to comfort himself by seeing what he's got. And you will see a very beautiful twist in this whole thing when we come to the 10th verse. But we do the 9th one first. Okay, verse number 9. Anye cha bahava shuraha.
Anye cha bahava shuraha.
Madarte tyakta jivitaha.
Madharte tyakta jivitaha.
Nana shastra praharanaha.
Nana shastra praharanaha.
Sarve yuddha visharadaha.
Sarve yuddha visharadaha.
Anye cha bahava shuraha. Madarte tyakta jivitaha. Nana shastra praharanaha. Sarve yuddha visharadaha. So here, Duryodhana says, Anye cha, and there are others too. There are too many to mention, so I'm not mentioning them, but there are others too. Bahava shuraha. There are many, many such heroes. And what are they? Mad arthe. For my sake, tyakta jivitaha. They are ready to give up their lives for my sake. And who are they? Nana Shastra Praharanaha means they are the wielder of various weapons. They know how to fight. And Sarve Yuddha Visharadaha, they are well skilled in battle. So not only do I have Bhishma, Drona, Karna, not only do I have these great warriors, I have so many more. There are too many to mention, and they're determined to give up their lives for my sake, and armed with various weapons and missiles, and they're very well skilled in battle. So not only is Duryodhana, so he's afraid, he uses indiscriminate words, telling his teacher what's already there. His teacher can clearly see. And then he becomes very insecure. And when we become insecure, we brag, right? It is like if you have maybe a dozen of quarters and you have $100 bill, which makes more noise? The quarters, right? The dozen of quarters, they make more noise. You shake them, they make more noise. But the $100 bill, it doesn't make that much noise, right? So the things that people that make a lot of noise means there's not much worth there. That's why they want to make a lot of noise, because there's nothing there. But the ones that, have some substance, they don't need to make so much noise because they know what they have. And so this is Duryodhana. He's making so much noise and bragging and bragging and bragging and saying, for my sake, they're laying out their lives. This is clearly somebody who is very distorted in their thinking. The vision is, again, very partial. It's not for this noble cause they're laying down their lives. For my sake, they're doing it. So you can see the kind of thinking that Duryodhana has, that Dhritarashtra has, very, very similar. Now, very interesting in this verse 10. This verse 10 can be read in two ways. So we will read it and then we will see in two ways how you read that verse. And one way you read that verse, you hear Duryodhana's thoughts. In the other way you read that verse, you read Duryodhana what he should say. So one is like what he wants to show, but one is what he's really feeling inside. So let us read that verse. Apariyaptam tadasmakam.
Aparyaptam tadasmakam.
Halam bhishmabhirakshitam.
Phalam bhishmabhirakshitam.
Paryaptam tvidametesha.
Paryaptam tvidametesham.
Balam bhimabhirakshitam.
Balam bhimabhirakshitam.
Aparyaptam tadasmakam. Phalam bhimabhirakshitam. Paryaptam tvidametesham. Balam bhimabhirakshitam. So the first one is Bhishma Pirakshitam. The second one is Bhima Pirakshitam. What does he say here? Now this word aparyaptam can mean two different things, but first we will go into the first. First we will talk about what Duryodhana wants to show, what Duryodhana wants to project. Okay, so this version is what Duryodhana wants to project. Aparyaptam means unlimited. Aparyaptam tad asmakam. So our army, right, is unlimited. Aparyaptam. And our balam here, balam means army. So asmakam balam, our army is aparyaptam. It's unlimited. Why? Bhishma abhirakshitam. It is protected by Bhishma. And Bhishma, we all know, is the warrior who's fought many, many battles and nobody's able to defeat him. He's undefeated. And he's the one who kills in the Mahabharata war thousands and thousands of soldiers each day. And we saw in the war how nobody could come close to him until he himself revealed how he had to be killed. So our army is unlimited. It's protected by Bhishma. Paryaptam. Twit ametesham. Etesham of the Pandavas. Two of the Pandavas, their balam, their army is paryaptam. It's limited. And it's protected by Bhima. It's just protected by Bhima. What is Bhima compared to Bhishma? So he brings these two things there, and this is what he wants to project. Now, aparyaptam can also mean insufficient. So very beautifully, this is now what he's feeling inside. What he's feeling inside is aparyaptam. Asmakam balam, our army is insufficient. It's insufficient. Even if it's protected by Bhishma, it's insufficient. This is in his heart. This is what he's thinking. And paryaptam, sufficient. That army of the Pandavas, it is sufficient. And that one is protected by Bhima. So this verse can be read in two ways. So one way is what he's trying to project, and one way is what he's really feeling inside. So as we said, he's bragging, he's being very loud, but inside he's actually shattered. And so he keeps saying all of these things. He keeps saying all of these things, but Drona is still quiet. He doesn't say anything. He's just there. And one may wonder, why is Dronacharya being so quiet? Well, it could also be because Drona himself is broken, isn't it? Dronacharya, his heart, his blessings are with the Pandavas. He loves the Pandavas. And if you remember that time when the Pandavas were coming out of Virat, the city of Virat, and Arjuna was in disguise as Brihanala, and he was running, and Dronacharya said, that has to be Arjuna. He has long hair and wearing a dress. That is Arjuna. And Dronacharya was so incredibly happy. So in his heart, he loves the Pandavas. He blesses the Pandavas. He prays for the Pandavas. But again, he is on the side of the Kauravas. So it could be that Dronacharya is just, he's broken. He's also broken on the inside and outside. And it could be also he knows that Duryodhana is speaking such utter nonsense. And so Duryodhana now, he loses all of his discrimination, all his war tactics. And he just advises everybody, listen, this is all I want you to do. There's only one thing I want you to do. And this is what he says in verse number 11. Ayaneshu cha sarveshu.
Ayaneshu cha sarveshu.
Yatha bhagamavasthitaha.
Yatha bhagamavasthitaha.
Bhishmamevabhirakshantu.
Bhishmamevabhirakshantu.
Bhavantas sarva eva hi.
Bhavantas sarva eva hi.
Ayaneshu cha sarveshu. Yatha bhagamavasthitaha. Bhishmamevabhirakshantu. Bhavantas sarva eva hi. So he says now he's out there to command everybody. And he says, Ayaneshu. In all of these divisions of the army, Sarveshu means in all of these divisions of the army, Yatha Bhagam, according to the division, Avasthita, stationed according to the division. What do I want you to do? Bhishmam eva abhirakshantu. All I want you to do is protect Bhishma. Just protect Bhishma, and all of you, bhavantaha sarva eva hi. All of you do this alone. So he says, therefore, do you all, stationed in your respective positions in the several divisions of the army, protect Bhishma alone. Because Bhishma is his only confidence. It's his only pillar in this whole war. And so Duryodhana goes on and on and on to speak this way. Now what happens is Bhishma can't take it anymore. He can't take it anymore. And what he does with all of Duryodhana's blabbering, that we will see next week. Okay? So far what we have seen today is this grand spectacle of how the very first verse of the Bhagavad Gita is problematic in its own. And it shows this deep attachment of Dhritarashtra. And how from verses 2 until about 13, we will see this whole thing that Duryodhana is going through. He is intimidated by the army of the Pandavas, by the warriors of the Pandavas. Therefore, he runs to Dronacharya. He runs seeking help, but he goes and Dronacharya doesn't say anything. And so he uses indiscriminate words, telling Dronacharya what's already there. When Dronacharya can see, he's a warrior. And so he feels so incredibly insecure that he brags. He brags and he brags and he brags about his own army. And as he's bragging, we see even in the Sanskrit verse how he is completely shattered. He's projecting something on the outside, but inside he's feeling something else. So this is Duryodhana's persona. And then next week, we will see how that war actually started. Who actually started it first? Okay? All right. So I hope all of you have gotten the book and are following along. And we will say the closing prayer. Okay, there is a question. We'll say the closing prayer and then I will answer the question. Yeah? Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.